My friend no longer wants me at her wedding after I helped finance and organize it, but my legal action has ruined everything because it came at the worst possible moment for her. I'm going through a lot right now, so forgive me if I just spill everything here. A month ago, I got a call from my childhood best friend, Emma. We went to school together and lived just 2 blocks apart. We were inseparable until high school. We were the type of friends whose entire families knew each other. However, her family moved to another part of the city and we gradually drifted apart. We stayed connected on social media and met at least once a year. You know how life gets in the way. Despite that, we were still friends. Not the kind who talk every day, but the kind who are always there when it matters. Emma had big news. She was getting married. The last time we saw each other, a year ago, she mentioned her boyfriend, but marriage hadn't been on the horizon back then. I was genuinely happy for her when I heard the news. Childhood best friends hold a special place in your heart. I thought she was calling to invite me to the wedding, but instead she wanted me to help with the preparations. I saw this as an opportunity to strengthen our bond. I mean, who wouldn't want to see their childhood best friend walk down the aisle? Emma said she was overwhelmed with tasks and asked for my help. I didn't hesitate for a second. I geared up as if this were my only mission in life. I was ready for wedding dress shopping, floral arrangements, and all those other wedding-related things. At first, it was fun. She consulted me about designs and plans before finalizing them, making me feel very special. But then things started getting strange. She began asking me to lend her money for almost everything. The first time it happened was during a shopping trip for her wedding shoes. She picked out an elegant pair, and at the register, she suddenly exclaimed, "Oh no, I'm out of cash. Can you cover me?" Without hesitation, I jumped in to help, assuming she would pay me back. A few days passed, and she didn't. I thought she might have forgotten and would eventually repay me. Later, she asked me to accompany her to her dress fitting. During the appointment, she asked me to front the payment, promising she would reimburse me once her paycheck came in. I agreed, keeping a record of what she owed. She explained that a payment from a foreign client was being held up at the bank, but she assured me she would pay off everything once it arrived. One day, she called me in a full-blown panic. Her wedding planner threatened to cancel unless a $10,000 deposit was made immediately. The client's payment still hadn't come through, and she begged for my help. I hesitated for a moment, but I had known her my entire life. Our families were close, and the situation seemed legitimate. Anyone could find themselves in her position. I figured that if my paycheck were delayed a month before my wedding, I might also have to borrow money from friends or family. Sure, I questioned why she wasn't asking her fiancé or parents for help. But then I thought maybe they were covering other expenses I wasn't aware of, or maybe she didn't want to burden them. Some people trust their friends more than their family. Emma swore up and down that she would pay me back as soon as the check came through. Of course, no problem. It was her wedding, and I wanted to support her. But the request didn't stop. $200 for makeup here, $300 for a hair accessory there. It all added up fast. I also found myself neck-deep in wedding-related tasks. She asked me to help design her invitations, and I spent hours researching the perfect templates and fonts. She couldn't decide on a menu, so I accompanied her to multiple tastings, always footing the bill based on her promise. "I'll pay you back soon. I'm keeping track of everything I borrow." Whenever she needed transportation to meet with vendors, I would drop whatever I was doing to drive her. I even stayed up one night helping her handcraft wedding favors because she wanted a personal touch. I often wondered if she didn't have any other friends to help her. I even asked her about it, and she replied, "It's hard to find genuine friends these days. Childhood friends hold a special place in your heart. No one can replace them." Each time I reminded myself, this is what friends do for each other. Sure, I was exhausted, but I thought about our decades-long friendship, our sleepovers, our talks about crushes and heartbreaks. We had a history together. As teens, we dreamed of standing beside each other on our big days, and there was no bigger day than her wedding. I felt like I was helping her create one of the happiest days of her life, and that made all the effort worthwhile. Oh, and about the maid of honor. When I asked who it would be, she told me it was going to be her sister. She explained that no one else could take that role, so it was already decided. I felt a bit disappointed, but it made sense. Her sister is 10 years younger and still a teenager. There wasn't much I could do about it, so I accepted it. Fast forward to today. We were out shopping for a dress she would wear to a family dinner this weekend. While we were there, I overheard her talking to the wedding planner, giving instructions to install a scanner at the entrance so only guests with a QR code could enter. She said, "If there are any uninvited guests, I'm not paying for extra meals." I was confused. A QR code? What QR code? I hadn't received any invitation, let alone a QR code. It hadn't even crossed my mind that she wouldn't have sent me an invitation. I assumed I didn't need one. I mean, I was by her side all the time. Why would I need a formal invitation? When she came out of the fitting room, I casually brought it up, saying, "Hey, you haven't sent me the invitation yet." "I'm not officially invited," I said with a laugh, thinking it would be funny. Her face froze for a second before she gave me an awkward smile. She looked me straight in the eye and said, "Oh, yeah, about that. The wedding is family only." I'm not inviting any friends. I laughed, thinking she was joking. I kept smiling, expecting her to laugh too. She didn't. I stood there, stunned. Wait, what? Emma repeated, her face serious this time. It's a super intimate wedding, just close family, sorry. At that moment, I wasn't laughing anymore. I had been running around for weeks, spending my own money, and I wasn't even on the guest list. I stared at her in shock. I had been going above and beyond to help her, spending thousands of dollars, and I wasn't worth an invitation. I asked her angrily, "So I'm good enough to pay for your wedding, but not good enough to attend it?" She stammered some excuse about budget constraints and keeping it small, but I was done. I turned to leave before I said something I'd regret. Emma grabbed my hands and said, "Why are you reacting like this?" "It's my wedding, and I decide who attends," I told her. "Of course," pulled my hands away and walked out. Now, I wish I had said more instead of holding it all in. It's past midnight, and I can't sleep. My mind keeps replaying every moment from the past few weeks. Every hour I spent helping her, all the money I shelled out, all the discomforts I ignored. My thoughts are racing, and I just can't fall asleep. I have a full-time job and a life. I put everything on hold to support her. I feel betrayed, humiliated, and used. Part of me wants to let it go. After all, it's her wedding and it's her choice who she invites. But another part of me can't shake the anger and hurt. I was always there for her, and she couldn't even extend the basic courtesy of inviting me to her big day. What do you think? Should I just let it go and hope she pays me back, or should I do something about it? Update 1. Here's a quick update to let you know that I'm doing better. I realized that if she didn't want me at her wedding, that's fine. It's her decision, and I shouldn't be upset about it. At the same time, I shouldn't allow myself to be exploited. I struggled with whether I should simply ask her for the money or take things further for revenge. However, I decided to wait until my nerves calmed down so I could make a rational decision. It took me a few days to get there. The incident I mentioned in my first post happened on Tuesday. I waited a couple of days before deciding to ask her to repay the debt. Thursday came and I woke up to a message from her. "Please send me $500, it's an emergency." I laughed and went back to sleep for another hour. When I woke up again, I saw several missed calls from her, probably reminders to respond to her message. I ignored them. Then she called again. At first, I thought about ignoring it again, but then I told myself, let's face this. I answered the call as casually as I could. I started by saying, "I'm glad you called. I was about to remind you to pay back the money I lent you." She mumbled something about her paycheck being delayed, but I cut her off and said, "It's $15,500. You have my bank details, right? Oh, and could you transfer it quickly?" Emma went silent for a second and then asked, "Are you trying to get back at me for not inviting you to the wedding?" I didn't know what to say. It was true that I felt hurt, but I didn't want to admit it, so I stayed quiet. Emma complained about the pressure she was under and how hard it was to handle everything with her delayed paycheck. I told her, "I'm sorry, but that's not my problem. I helped you when you needed it, and now I need you to pay me back." Emma yelled, "I don't have time for this. I'm getting married in a week. Can't you just advance me $500 immediately?" Not only was she refusing to repay me, but she was also asking for more money. I yelled back, "Did you not hear me? I'm not giving you another cent, and I expect you to pay me back." Emma dismissed me, saying, "Relax. Why are you being so dramatic? I'll pay you back eventually." I couldn't hold back my anger anymore. I shouted, "You know what? I want my money back, all of it, and I want it now." To my surprise, she laughed and said, "Don't be a baby. It's just a few thousand. You've got plenty. I know you earn a good salary. 10 or 15,000 won't drain your bank account. You won't even feel it." I was furious. I asked her, "So you knew I was financially stable and used me because of it?" She tried to defend herself, but I hung up on her. It was clear. She had taken advantage of me, and I wasn't going to let it slide. To have everything on record, I sent her a voice message requesting repayment. I gave her 24 hours to pay me back. To my surprise, she replied with a voice message saying, "I don't have time for this. Get over it. I'll pay when I have the money." Well, great. I gathered my bank statements, detailed the debt, saved her message, and decided to take legal action. I never thought it would come to this, but she left me no choice. Her tone made it clear she had no intention of repaying me, and I wasn't going to let her get away with it. All I wanted was my money back, but she played with fire, and now she's going to get burned. My brother's fiancé is a lawyer and a good friend of mine. I contacted him immediately, and he started working on the paperwork. The legal notice should be served tomorrow, Sunday, the day of her family dinner. I didn't want to ruin it, but if it does, I won't feel bad about it. Since I've started this thread, I'll keep you all updated. Update 2. It was a complete disaster. The legal notice was delivered right before her family dinner. And when I say right before, I mean literally while she was sipping wine with her in-laws. I paid extra to have it delivered in person by my lawyer's assistant, and interestingly enough, I went with him to witness the moment. I wanted to see her face when she received the notice. She probably thought it was a last-minute delivery, but nope, surprise. It was time to pay, literally. As soon as she saw me with a man in a suit holding a stack of papers, her face turned pale. She closed the door behind her and came out, asking what this was all about. The process server handed her the documents. Her face went white as a ghost as she read them. She panicked so much that her parents had to step in. I stood silently, curious to see what was making her so distressed. Her parents asked what was going on, and I pointed to the papers. Her mother started yelling, demanding to know why Emma was being sued just days before her wedding. Her father calmed her down and took us outside to the front porch to talk. The process server got her signature and left. Emma's fiancé came out to check what was happening, but her father brushed it off, saying it was just some bank documents. I decided to tell the truth. I explained that Emma owed me money and had no intention of paying it back. Her father was irritated that I would serve a legal notice over what he called small change. Then he found out the amount, $1,500, which was anything but small. The man almost had a heart attack right there. He kept repeating, "Did you say $15,000? Emma muttered excuses about her delayed paycheck and how it wasn't a big deal. Her father shouted, "It is a big deal. Not just for you, but for all of us." They tried to convince me to withdraw the lawsuit and wait until after the wedding, but I made it clear, 24 hours. By this point, some of Emma's aunts and uncles had come outside to see what the commotion was about. Though her parents put on fake smiles, it was obvious that a few relatives had heard enough. I noticed raised eyebrows and whispered conversations. One of them even asked, "Did she use her friend to fund this whole wedding?" Let me tell you, that did not sit well with her parents. Things were spiraling out of control. Initially, it was just the four of us discussing the matter, but soon 2 of her aunts and an uncle joined in. One of them asked who I was, why Emma owed me so much money, and why she hadn't simply paid me back. Another whispered something like, "She financed the wedding with her friend's money?" It was absolute chaos. I had planned to hand over the papers and leave, but with all the drama unfolding, who would want to miss the show? It was like front row seats to a live soap opera. I saw her future father-in-law watching from the window. After a while, he came out, visibly angry, and asked what was going on. When the situation was explained to him, his reaction was interesting. He turned to Emma and asked, "Why didn't you just invite her to the wedding if she's been helping you so much?" And you know what she said. "I didn't think it was that important." He couldn't believe it. He said something like, "You didn't think it was a big deal to invite someone who basically financed half our wedding? Are you crazy?" At that point, her parents got even more involved. They had been contributing to the wedding expenses and now started questioning where their money had gone. The whole atmosphere was tense. Despite the awkwardness, I wasn't about to leave. I wanted to see how it would all play out. I told them, "I would prefer for you to handle this, but I want my money back within 24 hours. Emma's mother pulled me aside and begged, "We've known you since you were a child. Isn't there anything you can do to help your friend? Please, for our sake, give us more time until after the wedding." I replied, "I'm sorry, but I can't let myself be exploited any longer." Oh, it was a total disaster. The legal notice was delivered right before her family dinner, literally while she was sipping wine with her in-laws. I paid extra to ensure it was served in person by my lawyer's assistant, and I even accompanied him because I wanted to witness her reaction firsthand. She probably thought it was a last-minute delivery, but surprise, it was payback time. The moment she saw me with a man in a suit holding a stack of papers, her face turned ghostly pale. She stepped outside, closing the door behind her, and asked what this was about. The process server handed her the papers, and as she read them, her face drained of all color. She panicked so badly that her parents had to get involved. I stood there silently, observing. Her parents demanded to know what was going on, and I pointed to the documents. Her mom started shouting, "Why is she being sued just days before her wedding?" Her dad calmed her and led us outside to the porch to talk. The server got Emma's signature and left. Emma's fiancé also came out to see what was happening, but her father brushed him off, claiming it was just bank paperwork. I decided to tell the truth. Emma owed me money and had no intention of paying it back. Her dad was irritated at first, calling it small change, but when he heard the amount, $1,500, his tone changed immediately. He almost had a heart attack, repeating, "Did you say $15,000? Emma mumbled excuses about a delayed paycheck and how it wasn't a big deal, but her dad snapped, "It is a big deal, not just for you, but for all of us." They tried to convince me to drop the lawsuit and wait until after the wedding. I firmly told them I expected my money back within 24 hours. By this time, several of Emma's aunts and uncles had come outside, curious about the commotion. Some raised their eyebrows, clearly having overheard parts of the conversation. One of them asked, "Did she use her friend to finance this entire wedding?" That question did not sit well with her parents. The drama escalated quickly. Initially, it was just the four of us talking, but soon 2 aunts and an uncle joined in. One of them asked who I was, why Emma owed me so much, and why she hadn't paid me back. I even heard someone whisper, "She scammed her friend to fund this wedding?" It was utter chaos. I had intended to just hand over the papers and leave, but with all the drama unfolding, who would want to miss this front row show? I noticed Emma's future father-in-law watching from the window. He eventually came outside, visibly angry, and demanded to know what was going on. After the situation was explained to him, he turned to Emma and asked, "Why didn't you just invite her if she's helped you so much?" Emma's response, "I didn't think it was that important." His face was priceless. He said, "You didn't think it was important to invite someone who basically financed half our wedding? Are you out of your mind?" At that point, her parents also jumped in. They had been contributing to the wedding and started questioning where all their money had gone. The whole event was tense and awkward. I wasn't going anywhere though. I wanted to see how it all played out. I told them, "I'd prefer for you to handle this, but I want my money back in 24 hours. Emma's mom pulled me aside and pleaded, "We've known you since you were a child. Isn't there anything you can do to help your friend? Please, for our sake, give us more time until after the wedding." I responded, "I'm sorry, but I can't let myself be exploited any longer." At this point, her father tried to soften the situation by saying, "You're like family to us. You'll attend the wedding. You're like our daughter." He was trying to flatter me, but I wasn't buying it. I told him, "I don't want to attend a wedding where I'm only being invited because I took legal action." I finally left because nothing productive was happening. They just kept trying to convince me to back down. Later, I found out that after I left, Emma's parents and fiancé sat her down and demanded a full breakdown of the wedding expenses. Turns out, she had been spending recklessly, blowing money on custom floral arrangements, premium catering upgrades, and even a live string quartet for the ceremony. The $10,000 I had lent her? It had gone straight to her wedding planner's emergency fees, which were apparently just last-minute whims, not true emergencies. The wedding was far from intimate. Emma hadn't invited me because she didn't think I was important enough, or maybe she didn't want me to see how extravagant it was and risk me demanding repayment. It was clear she had no intention of being honest. My lawyer suggested filing a temporary injunction to freeze her account so she couldn't claim she had no money to pay me later. When she found out, she exploded. She sent me a string of messages calling me every name in the book, none of them flattering. She accused me of ruining her life and claimed I was jealous because she was getting married while I was still single. Meanwhile, her parents tried to emotionally manipulate me, saying, "How could you do this to your childhood friend?" I responded, "How could she do this to her childhood friend?" Her dad eventually called my lawyer, asking to settle out of court. He insisted on a meeting the next day. Emma came with her parents, and she was fuming when she saw me. We discussed all the financial issues, and her parents were furious with her. They told her she needed to cut the wedding budget immediately. Emma protested, saying it was her dream wedding and she wouldn't compromise. But her dad stood firm, saying, "You're not going to drag this family into financial ruin over a party." Emma completely lost it, screaming that her special day was being ruined and blaming me for everything. But her tantrums didn't help. They had no choice but to pay me back every cent they owed, along with a penalty for harassment. Later, I saw on her Instagram that they had canceled the string quartet, downgraded the catering, and slashed the guest list even further. The best part? Emma wore a different dress than the designer gown she had originally purchased. I guess her parents made her return it and buy something more affordable. But you know what? Karma works in mysterious ways. The story spread among other friends. I wasn't going around telling people what happened, but when a mutual friend asked, I told her the truth. That's when I learned that Emma had pulled similar stunts before, forgetting her wallet at lunch or dinner and promising to pay next time, but that next time never came. Over time, her friends had distanced themselves. The wedding ended up being the intimate affair she had originally claimed, just immediate family. Not because she wanted it that way, but because she had no other choice. Services were canceled, and the decorations, food, and overall vibe were minimal. I'm sure it was hard for her to see so many disappointed faces on her big day, and honestly, it was satisfying to know she couldn't just walk all over me without consequences. Update 3. It's been over a year since I last posted on this subreddit, but I think what recently happened deserves one final update. It's about my ex-childhood friend Emma and her marriage, so I hope you stick around to read it. To bring you up to speed on what's been going on with Emma after her wedding, I should start by saying that she did have a honeymoon, though not in the dreamy, luxurious destination she had planned. Back when I was still helping her with the wedding preparations, she would constantly talk about spending a couple of weeks in Hawaii in a beachfront house with a stunning view. If that sounds expensive, it's because it was. I wouldn't be surprised if she had expected me to finance it at some point. However, with my lawsuit, those plans were canceled, and she had to switch to Plan B. Though honestly, I don't think the honeymoon she ended up having was even her second choice, probably more like Plan Z. Or maybe we need to invent new letters to describe how far it was from her original plans. It was so disappointing that she hasn't posted a single photo of it on Instagram. Still, I've learned the details. She stayed at her aunt's house in Ohio. And no, it wasn't some picturesque dream house. It was just a regular house with a view of nothing. That was the luxurious honeymoon she ended up with. At least now she has the opportunity to finally have the wedding and honeymoon of her dreams because she's in the middle of a divorce. You could say her marriage lasted a few months, which, to be fair, is longer than I and many commenters here thought it would. In my opinion, it's a mystery how she managed to get married in the first place, considering all the red flags her fiancé must have seen. It's unlikely that the divorce has to do with her behavior or money issues, otherwise, they probably wouldn't have made it to the altar. But without more details, I can only speculate. I could suggest meeting her for coffee to find out what happened, but I'm afraid she'd ask me to pay for it, and just like that, my curiosity fades. That's all I have to share for now. Edit. I found out that the reason for the divorce was infidelity on her husband's part. Honestly, I would have bet my new $15,000 that it was her, but this girl never ceases to surprise me. She shocked me when she used me for money, and now she shocked me again by not being the unfaithful one or the direct cause of the divorce. Interestingly, I also learned that her husband had a prenuptial agreement. Maybe my lawsuit played a role in all of this.